I'm standing in front of the greatest pyramid in the land of Egypt. It was built by Pharaoh Khufu, or if you prefer his Greek name, Cheops, of the 4th dynasty. Experts and scholars still wonder today at these amazing feats of architecture and engineering. And later during the program, we'll be showing you the internal workings of this particular pyramid on a to-scale model. In the meantime, however, let's go back in time with David Down as we take you back through the exciting history of the great dynasties of Egypt.
Well, there were 30 or 31 dynasties in the history of ancient Egypt, depending on whether you include the last Persian dynasty or not. A dynasty, you know, is where a king is succeeded by his son, and so long as it stays in the family, it's a dynasty. Well, the first king of the first dynasty was a king by the name of Menes, and these kings were buried in what are known as mastabas. Now, these are stone mastabas over here of the 4th dynasty, but the kings of the 1st and 2nd dynasty were buried in mud brick mastabas. Now, when we come to the 3rd dynasty, there was a dramatic development, and we find that at Saqqara. Let's go there and have a look. We are now at the so-called step pyramid of Saqqara, which you can see over here. And in this pyramid, we have 2 significant steps forward. It was made for King Zoser of the 3rd dynasty by his architect Imhotep. And in the first place, instead of using mud bricks, as did the pharaohs of the 1st and 2nd dynasties, it is made of stone. Pretty rough stone, to be sure, but nevertheless it's made of stone. And secondly, we have here 6 stages altogether. First of all, it started off as a mastaba, and then 4 stages were placed on top of that. Then later on, 2 more stages, making 6 stages altogether. But how do we know that this is how the pyramid was built? Well, around the south side, where the stone robbers have removed the outer facing of the pyramid, you can see where the mastaba was originally. And then around the east side, you can see the joints. See where it's been added on here? And so the archaeologists have been able to put the whole thing together, and we know just how it was done. Now, the question is, where did this concept come from? Where did Imhotep get this great idea? It's assumed that he just had a brainwave and built up the stages one by one, thought after thought. I personally don't agree with that. I consider that this whole concept was borrowed from Mesopotamia. You see, there was more communication between Mesopotamia and Egypt than is generally assumed, I think. And in Mesopotamia, where civilization began, we have what is known as ziggurats. For instance, there's the ziggurat of Ur of the Chaldees. There's the Tower of Babel in Babylon, and there's Bur's Nimrod. There are numerous ziggurats, and they were stage upon stage. Now, the only difference was that whereas these ziggurats were used for worship, they used to go up on top there and worship on top, this idea was used for burial. So you don't go up on top, it was simply a burial chamber underneath. And actually there's a more complex series of passages and tomb chambers underneath here than any other pyramid or any other burial place in the whole of the land of Egypt. It's absolutely amazing. Now, from here, we can see 3 pyramids in the distance as we look south, and they all belong to one king. Now, not even a god king can be buried in 3 places at once. So why did this king want 3 pyramids in which to be buried? What you're looking at is not really the final pyramid. You're just looking at the square core. Originally, this was the first true pyramid form. Now, what we saw at Saqqara, so-called step pyramid, which I don't consider to be a pyramid at all, went up in stages. But here we have the development of the first true pyramid form. It went right up straight on the outside. But you'll notice that the outside is gone, it's fallen down. The question is, what happened? Well, it's like this. If we were to go in the entrance, we would find that there's a descending corridor going right down, and then a horizontal passage going along, and at the end of that, there are some large cedar beams there holding the stones together. And from there we go straight up into the centre, the very heart of the pyramid, and up there is the tomb chamber. But you'll notice something about it. It's not finished, never was finished. And after all, this is what a pyramid is all about, for the burial of the king. That's the most important part. Okay, so why wasn't it finished? Well, the question is, did this outside covering collapse slowly, disintegrate over thousands of years, or as Kurt Mendelsohn, an engineer incidentally, not an archaeologist, but maybe an engineer knows more about this, he claims that it was a sudden collapse and it happened before the pyramid was entirely finished. And that would explain, of course, just why it was abandoned. After all, it must have been like an earthquake when it all came tumbling down. So what was the king going to do? Well, he could clear the rubble away and start again, maybe, but maybe there's some superstitious reason that he decided not to do that. And so he decided to go elsewhere. And so we have the second pyramid, which is the bent pyramid. Now, it's called the bent pyramid because it goes up at an angle of 54 degrees and then levels off to 43 degrees. Now, the question is why? Well, some people say he ran out of money, finished it off more economically. Others say he died and his son finished it off. Well, I'll tell you what his son would have been doing. His son would have been busy building his own, you see. So what is more likely is that he got it up halfway and then he realised that this also could collapse. Actually, there are some stress strains, some cracks in that pyramid, which suggest there was a problem. Now, that being the case, maybe he said, well, look, we better finish it off at a lower angle so as to see that it doesn't collapse. But the stress strains were there. So maybe that accounts for the third pyramid. Now, the third pyramid, the red pyramid of Dashur, was finished off, the whole thing, at 43 degrees. And I guess he figured, well, here's one pyramid which is not going to come down on top of me after I'm buried there. So I think this is undoubtedly the reason why he had three pyramids. There's just one other interesting point about this, and that is, people ask me, how long did it take to build the pyramids? Well, most people refer to Herodotus, the ancient historian about in the 5th century BC, who says that the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the ramp leading up to it, the causeway, took about 10 years, and the pyramid itself 20 years. But listen, 30 years. The pharaohs didn't rule that long. They had no guarantee they're going to be still alive at the end of 30 years. But on the other hand, the bent pyramid of Dashur has an inscription down the bottom in which it refers to the 21st year of the king. And halfway up is another inscription with the 22nd year of the king. It means it only took 1 year to get from the bottom to halfway up. The whole thing probably finished in 2 years. So maybe Khufu's pyramid was finished in about 2 or 3 years. I think that's more likely. Well, you wouldn't want to have claustrophobia to go into that pyramid. And look, while we're here, just over there is a mastaba. I think we should go in there and have a look. The original entrance to this mastaba is round on the east side, but it was blocked up when the mastaba was first made, so nobody has ever gone in there since. But we have to go in here, which is the entrance that was made by the tomb robbers to get everything out of the mastaba of value. Well, you can see they didn't make a very big hole. In fact, you have to really squeeze through here to get into the tomb chamber. Now, when you get through there, you can see the stone plugs that blocked up the original entrance. That's why the tomb robbers had to make their own entrance. And here you can see the sarcophagus in which the body was buried in the tomb chamber. Well, it was pretty hard to get in and out of there. Well, now we go to the biggest pyramid of all, Senefru's son, Khufu, or Cheops. Well, this is the pyramid of Khufu, or Greek name Cheops. And what a massive monument this is. Do you realise just how many stones are in this thing? It has been estimated that there are 2,300,000 blocks of stone in this colossal monument, and on the average each stone is about 2.5 tonnes in weight. The biggest of them is 15 tonnes. You know, there's just so many stones in this pyramid that suppose we do it this way. If we took some of these stones and we cut them into pieces, blocks, 30 centimetres by 30 centimetres, and we put one block here and another block beside it and another one and so forth, just keep on going. Do you know we could go right round the coast of Australia and we've still only used half the blocks of stone in this pyramid. We could go right round again. That's a colossal number of stones, you know. Well, people ask me, how did they get these stones up there in the first place? There are no tomb inscriptions. There's no reference in any of the statements in the ancient writers as to how this was done. The only clue we have is the fact that at Karnak there is a pylon there, and there are some mud bricks going up, and they never removed them. And that gives us the clue that this was the way they got these big stones right up onto the top of these pylons or up these pyramids. So undoubtedly that's the way it was up here. No mystery about it at all. This pyramid is colossal. From one corner to the other is 229 metres. Now, do you realise that in order to walk right around you're going to go more than 1 kilometre? The height is 146 metres. Well, that's what it is today anyway. You might notice the top is a little bit flat. It's 10 metres lower today. That's because local builders have taken stones from the top for their own building purposes in Cairo. Well, how was this pyramid entered? What was it like at the beginning? Well, we'll go around the other side and have a look at that. Now, we're around the north side of the pyramid, and this is where the official entrance was. In fact, if you look up there, you can see the keystones, the arch, and that was where the official entrance was, and from there a descending corridor slopes down right into the very heart of the pyramid. But in order to see just what the inside passages and tomb chambers are like, we need to have a look at a model of the pyramid, take it apart, and then you'll be able to understand what the inside of this pyramid is like. Now you can see here the original entrance. When it was finished, of course, this was covered up so that you couldn't see it. It's slightly off-centre. Here's about the centre here, and here is Mamun's entrance where they illegally dug in there, and that's where visitors, tourists go in there today. I have made it so that we can take it apart and you can see the passages inside. Now, over here is the entrance and the descending passage going down into bedrock, and then it levels off and goes to a tomb chamber, which is unfinished. Here are these is the ascending passageway, and it was blocked off here with a slab of stone so that anyone going down here would not know that the passage was there. But that's the slab of stone that fell down when the workmen of Mamun started digging through there. You'll notice it's blocked up by 3 large slabs of stone here, and then the passage goes right up here. It goes level here, horizontal, to what is known as the Queen's Chamber, and there are 2 vents coming up here, only they go nowhere. Then here is the ascending gallery, and it comes up here and then levels off and goes into the King's Chamber. And up the end there is the sarcophagus. There are 5 gaps above here to relieve the pressure of the enormous amount of stone that's above it, crushing it. And it was in here that a workman had scribbled the name of Khufu, and that's how we can identify this pyramid. There are 2 small passages going up here. They're only small, and air vents, what are they? I don't think so. But anyway, they come up here and right out to the outside. So this gives you an idea of what the inside of the pyramid looks like.